Welcome to APA's weekly webinar. My name is Billy Zydick, Manager, Special Projects for APA. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. The webinar recording will be posted to the APA webpage later this afternoon. You'll receive a follow-up email in the next couple of days with a link to the webpage where all recordings are housed, as well as a link to our upcoming webinars. We have webinars planned out through December 2021, and many are open for registration. Professional continuing education credits and AIA-CLUs are being offered for today's program. If you are an AIA professional requiring a certificate, please send an email to me at Billie, B-I-L-L-I-E, @apa.org, along with your AIA membership number if you have not done so in the past. All attendees are in listen-only mode. Please type your questions in the chat box and they will be answered in the order they are received. If we run out of time and we still have questions, responses will be sent directly to the person asking the question by one of our presenters. At this time, it's my pleasure to turn this over to Brian Phillips, who will introduce the presenters. Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Billy, and thanks everybody for taking the time to join us. Since 2005, colleges, universities, and regional school systems have been taking advantage of smart waste since its inception for three major reasons: sustainability, campus beautification, and operational efficiency. Rather than worrying about this from us, you're going to learn how smart waste has benefited two campuses directly from the folks that made the decision to implement smart waste and continue to facilitate it today. To add a little more pizzazz, our webinar will be hosted by one of the four folks that founded Big Belly and had the vision to pioneer and invent smart waste way back in 2003 when he was a mechanical engineer at Olin College here in the Boston area. Go ahead, Jeff. So this is 2005. One more push. I'd like to introduce Jeff Satlich, our VP of Product Innovation and Strategy. Doesn't look a day older than he did 18 years ago.
Thank you very much, Brian. I hope I've aged a little bit in 18 years since being part of this company. It's a pleasure to be talking to everybody today and co-hosting this webinar here. We are here to talk about how to return back to campus. I think hopefully we're all feeling the winds shifting in this year-long pandemic and starting to think about what the fall will look like. Celebrations back again, sporting events back again, students back again. And here to talk a little bit about how Big Belly can play into that with some of the major benefits that we were talking about earlier. A little background on us as a company. We've been around for 18 years, as Brian was talking about. I was part of the original founding team here. Invented the solar compactor, which was kind of what we built the company off of, and have been refining it and perfecting it ever since. And to build it to what it has become today, which is a product that's found in all 50 states here in the US and in over 50 countries around the world. The solution started out as a solar compactor and has grown into the system and complete system that it is today, with multiple waste streams that are all smart and connected, with both compacting and non-compacting options, and a variety of ways to deploy on campus. We have our product deployed in a lot of different markets, from cities to transit systems, corporate areas, sports venues, but we're here to talk about two of our more exciting markets, which is the colleges and universities market and our K-12 market. This is a small snapshot of the campuses that we're deployed at today. They've been a great market for Big Belly, and I truly do believe that higher ed does lead the way in forward thinking about sustainability and innovation and waste. And it shows in both the partners that we have and the folks that we're going to be talking about with today. We talked about the lead on here was the three kind of pillars of what Big Belly brings and the system brings to a campus, and it's sustainability, beautification, and operational efficiency. And we do feel like in many cases they each have almost an equal importance in what the solution provides. Colleges and universities, both on the student side and on the campus side, are very interested in sustainability. When our product is deployed, as we'll hear about from our speakers later on, it's it creates a uniform recycling program, which the students can use and see. The connected features make the diversion rates and the recycling rates measurable and presentable to people that are interested. And through reduction of vehicle traffic and whatnot, you do see a really important carbon footprint reduction that's measurable, and it's all working towards trying to create a better world for the future. As far as beautification goes, the products, because they are compactors by and large, have total waste containment to keep keep the waste in and the public out, and that has the benefit of preventing overflows, keeping waste invisible to the public, and preventing any windblown litter and access to critters, and really makes a more beautiful space around the stations and around the campus. On the operational side, the reason we started the company in the first place was to take the waste out of the waste industry. And the compactors that we deploy are completely cordless. They run off of their own solar energy and will compact and hold at least 5 times as much as a traditional bin. And this gives a lot of operational flexibility to the facilities departments on what they're going to do with that additional time and capability that they have to hopefully make the campus an even better place than it was beforehand. The connected system does have automated real-time collection notifications, so that really helps them stay on top of it and not be worrying about and wondering about what's going on campus. And we can look at reporting to figure out what's been going on, how the team's been doing, and show and share with everybody what the operational change has been. 2 main parts of our system, as you can see here, are our stations. This one here in the upper right-hand corner happens to be from UC Berkeley. It's a triple station, so multiple waste streams. We have 5 total waste streams that we offer, so it can really conform and adapt to whatever the needs are on the campus. Each one of these stations compacts and provides real-time fullness information to the suite of software products that you can see in the screenshot below. We have a web app, we have a mobile app, and we can send out email notifications about the status of the bins, when they need to be collected, and what the operational needs of that station are. So I'm going to stop talking now and turn it over to our wonderful guests. Want to introduce to you the 2 guests we have speaking here today. The first has been at the helm of University of Florida as their Assistant VP of Facilities, Mark Helms. And the next guest is the king of zero waste in California, zero waste manager Lynn King from UC Berkeley.
Hey, I'm a little disappointed I didn't get a king or a prince or anyway. Hey,
Well, you got to blame your parents for that. I mean,
You're the king of efficiency.
Yeah. Guys, I'm Mark Helms. I'm the AVP of Facility Services. I've been at Florida for about just a little over 4 years after a lifetime career at Virginia Tech up in Southwestern Virginia. Current responsibilities are all the trade shops, housekeeping, grounds, storeroom, warehouse receiving, fleet management, waste management, sustainability, and the utility generation and distribution across the beautiful UF campus. About 2,000 acres, roughly 1,000 buildings, 55,000 students, both undergraduate and graduate, and about 30,000 faculty and staff. And you can go to the next slide and then actually just go straight to the third one. So previous experience in the lifetime that I'd spent at Virginia Tech, we really were struggling with lots of challenges, reducing that collection. We were running trucks all day on sidewalks. We had lots of waste overflow, paper around, windblown litter, and of course we attracted every possum, skunk, and raccoon in the country. And so we're really looking at ways to better prioritize our waste management. And then our housing unit helped us. They modified their trash removal process for the students. They decided students would take their own waste out to dumpsters. And while they put some nice new compacting dumpsters in place, it seemed that everything ended up in our trash cans outside because students were coming out the front of dorms, not the rear of dorms. And so one tall kitchen trash bag, and suddenly I had a trash can full because we had modified these beautiful tulip cans. So at any rate, great example of how silos and maximizing one person's situation really put the operations team in bad shape. So I reached out to Big Belly. I'd actually seen them at in a airport at the time. Reached out to Big Belly. They were very quick to respond to me. They were continually improving their product line. We got in very early in this market. They were quick to respond to all my problems and needs, very quick to adapt their program to what I needed. And really with carbon reduction and sustainability, it was an absolute home run at Virginia Tech. So next slide, please. Mark decides to transition to the University of Florida. And I get here and I walk around this absolutely gorgeous campus. First thing you see is litter. You see cans that aren't where they were supposed to be. I got a great picture of a raccoon in a tree with a McDonald's French fry container eating French fries. We had a lot of work to do. And so I called on my friends at Big Belly. They came in, they did the same outstanding work that they did for me at Virginia Tech. They looked at our whole process. They looked at where we had cans, how we had cans, how we picked it up, and they came back to us with a great model to improve our service. Next slide. So what are the benefits? Yeah, go straight to that. So very quickly, we realized when working with the Big Belly folks that it was these high traffic areas that were causing us the most problems. Dining halls, student unions. We have one section of our campus that we have a higher traffic count on than many of the streets in Disney do, even in the summer. So that gives you some idea of what we're dealing with, not only from the waste that we're collecting, but how do you get to it and pick it up, particularly if you have to get to it multiple times a day. You can see there was one space we were picking up 18 times a month. Now with Big Belly, we're doing it 2 or 3 times a month. So it keeps us out of sight. We're not trying to empty trash cans while people are eating lunch. Next slide, please. We actually reduced our bin footprint by 76%. So we had 300 of the most attractive waste cans ever across the UF campus. They were probably 10 different styles. Some were plastic, some were metal. Some may have been as sophisticated as a 55-gallon barrel with a nice coat of paint to try to handle the loads. And so what it allowed us to do is really enhance these spaces by removing all the clutter. And so those 300 receptacles are now 71 Big Belly receptacles, primarily dual stations. We do have some 3 stations. We are a multi-stream recycling, so we have paper and metal canned goods separate, so it's a multi-station. It really has streamlined our disposal process and has greatly reduced our traffic. Our campus is a much more attractive campus now because we don't have litter, we don't have unsightly messes around trash cans, and we are doing a much better job at managing the pickup and reducing the number of times we're out at the facilities, at the cans. Next slide, please, Billy. So this is a real high-level look at what we believe we are saving in annual labor dollars. You look at that and you go, well, that's a really big number. I've had people argue with me that that's not real money, but actually it is, because it's not only has it allowed us to minimize the number of people who are focused at this and actually reduce a position through retirement. It's the opportunity cost of having someone go 18 times to a can instead of doing something else that is needed. That opportunity cost has been huge to us in changing some of our activities in grounds and how people actually are responding to these cans and who's picking them up. It's the person closest to it, not someone being dispatched to it. So I would tell you that is absolutely real dollar savings. Then of course the annual bag savings, that's that many bags that we haven't put in the landfill. Next slide. We've actually worked with our university planning group. We have just recently finished a master plan and a landscape master plan for the main campus. We are now utilizing the Big Belly as our standard for waste pickup. There may be some small areas off campus that will do something different, but this is going to be the primary receptacle on campus. And again, you can see how we reduced pickup times. Instead of 3 times a day, we're going to it once a day. And I cannot overstress how well these products actually take the waste, contain the waste, and keep the waste out of sight. Now a quick look at our sustainability. Our sustainability numbers. We're up. We're actually up, and we're up because of the cleanliness of the product. It doesn't mean that somebody has to sift through like they did with the old cans. People walk by a can and they throw it in one. This really directs them to put it in a specific place. Folks have been, you'll see the foot pedal on this model. You'll see folks have been really pleased that there is no point of contact when they're throwing away their waste. But our recycle numbers and sustainability numbers, it has driven us up simply because we're keeping it clean and we don't have to sort through it to get the recycle effort. Next slide, Billy. It's a big, hey, thanks guys for listening to me. I tried to move through it pretty quickly. I know there's lots of busy folks on, but I would tell you without hesitation, this group is worth your time to have a conversation with about what they can do for your university. They have worked with me in both situations to phase in. We're about to go to another phase here at UF, but to phase this in as you begin to recognize savings. And I think it's an absolute home run for anyone who wants to give it a try.
Thank you so much, Mark. Mark has been a great partner of Big Bellies. Deploying our system on a campus is a partnership. It's not something that we can do by themselves, and not something that that this can do. So Mark's been a great partner of ours, and hopefully we continue to have a great relationship together for years to come. So thank you very much for your time here. Without further ado, we're going to move on to our second esteemed guest. Lynn King is from UC Berkeley. He's spent the last 25 years in higher ed, facilities management, and zero waste in particular. He's managed the R4 recycling program at UC Davis for 15 years, and then has transitioned to UC Berkeley for the past 10 years as manager of zero waste and Cal Zero Waste at UC Berkeley. He's had some impressive awards there. UC Berkeley won the Pac-12 Road to Zero Waste basketball competition 4 consecutive times, and earned a platinum certification for USGBC Zero Waste for 2 ball. So he's really lives in sustainability in the Zero Waste Initiative, and brings that passion to everything he does.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. I'd like to thank APA and also Big Belly for giving us the opportunity to be able to present kind of our journey on Big Belly and our experiences on campus. And great, thanks, Mark, for your presentation. It's also good to see other campuses and how they deploy the bins and the efficiencies that we've also seen. So Mark, great. That was a great presentation, and they too kind of ours. So next slide. So what we're going to cover a little bit, Berkeley's experience is kind of the different phases that we took on deploying the Big Bellies. As Jeff mentioned earlier, so University of California, Davis, where I originally started, was a very suburban campus. And then when I got to Berkeley, Berkeley was really just urban. So lots of traffic, lots of density, very different environment. And we had to look at ways to deploy something different from what Berkeley currently had. So next slide. So we're going to cover real quick just a little bit on the different phases that we took. I understand, again, learning from the stories of some other campuses that, deploying something new, changing and all these different things are often the challenge. Same at Berkeley. It wasn't, quickly decided that we were able to switch over. They had a long history of different bins. But so phase 1, as far as us deploying, we started with 10 sets, and that wasn't easy for us. There were a lot of folks that already were either vested into the current system that they had a campus standard. The problem is, though, on campus, there was still a bunch of different types of bins, and everyone was confused on what type of bin, what to use, different signage. So the first 10 that we started, we were able to say, okay, well, just 10, hopefully that'd be fine. And we got at least an approval for just to test the 10. And the location kind of picked was, if it was our called Upper Sproul Plaza area. And those of you who are familiar with Berkeley, is that, the iconic Telegraph Street, which is in the city of Berkeley, and then our iconic Sather Gate. So it's basically the stretch where lots of traffic, lots of students, they have all their club meetings, they have all their tabling, it's all on Upper Sproul. So our decision to say if it works here at Upper Sproul, if there's a place to pilot it, is going to be here. If it works here, it's going to work anywhere else on our campus. And I've listed kind of where all the different challenges are on this particular location. And this is exactly, we have vandalism, we have pest issues, litter, just non-uniformity on bins, overflowing, and then we have staffing who just could not keep up with the different overloads or overflows that we see. Next slide. So that pilot actually went pretty well, and we kept moving forward. And what landed next, which was really lucky, is that our Lower Sproul Plaza and Eshelman, which is our student union and MLK locations, were just planning to do a renovation. So the first 10 we had funded through facilities. This next 15, we said, you know what? With this new project that was next door, right next to the Upper Sproul location, the project actually decided to go ahead and fund the next 15 sets for the Union and the Lower Sproul location. So that was really good luck for us that we were able to expand in the next phase. They saw the impressive cleaning up of the Upper Sproul, so they decided that this was a good project and decided to move forward. And again, same challenges being that it was just next door to the Upper Sproul location. We have the same problems and challenges, so they knew that this was going to hopefully work for them. Okay, next slide. So after those two pilots, as I said, we moved really slowly. We tested it for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And between collections, the efficiency, the amount of support we got, and overall just cleaning this, as Mark mentioned earlier on his campus, we also experienced the same. It just cleaned up the area a lot better. People got used to using the bins. And we were lucky right then. As I said, we part of this rollout was luck and a lot of opportunity. We had a new vice chancellor who came in, and he was very familiar with the Bigbelly system and made an investment, deciding after looking at all the information that we were able to do for the two pilots, that we had an ability to expand the whole campus rollout. And this is also in fitting with our zero waste goals. Again, we have a zero waste 2020 goal and beyond. So this really fulfilled all our zero waste and also between the rollout. So we ended up expanding, and we had 76 sets that we ended up doing for the whole campus. And similar to Mark's experience, we were able to remove a lot of the old trash and recycling receptacles that were inconsistent with the campus. So this opportunity was great. It helped us reduce the amount of bins that were not uniform on campus and also increase our efficiency in collections. Next slide. So a few things to learn. I just want to point out some strategies through the rollouts at our campus and what we wanted to do in the rollouts. As I mentioned, all those challenges we had in the past, these are some strategies we used. So first, the clean and green solar paneling. So with some of the, as I mentioned, we had lots of vandalism, graffiti. This is just part of the campus. We see that everywhere. So one of the ideas and strategy we came up with is let's make this campus set as part of ownership. I've seen a lot of campuses do that and they're very successful. So we basically on the side panels designed one that said clean and green. Let's keep our campus clean. These are solar bellies, so it really helps us with decreasing our carbon footprint. Having that ownership and feel for the students, I think faculty and staff on campus made it where in fact I think I've seen all these panels actually were not graffitied on. I think people actually stayed away from that, being that it's feeling like this is part of campus and their pride in the campus. So that really helped us actually decrease the amount of graffiti and other things that were vandalism that we saw on campus, and specifically in the first rollout. The other we color coded. So again, really important in order to make sure the materials are not contaminated. We decided to do the landfill black. We did, I kind of had back and forth deciding whether I should do recycling, but I think we really just thought cans and bottles. We do have a dual stream recycling system on campus where we keep our paper and bottles and cans separate, so it's not a single stream system. So we decided to just keep the bottles and cans blue for our Big Belly system, and then we did add composting, which was not part of the original outdoor collection system. So that was a definite bonus and plus. And a lot of our students requested that they wanted to see composting. So in the new strategy setting, we included composting at the beginning of our pilots. Also, just to keep things completely equal, we use all compaction and hoppers. This is so that if you have the other system, the concern was people may not want to touch the bin, they'll just throw their materials in. But with it all being equal and all compaction and efficiencies, they have to make a choice to be able to open up the hopper and place the product in. So it really made it, I think, decreasing our contamination rate. We still get some, but as I said, it helps at least decrease the amount of contamination that we get. Clear and simple signage. I think we've seen a lot of signage out there where the signage gets too complex. So we really have clear signage. And again, with help of Big Belly, the hoppers and everything else and the signage really helps as far as educating our campus community. The last one, which is a strategy, is the use of compostables and recyclables. It's going to be tough to try to get your sustainability goals or zero waste. If you don't sell compostables and recyclables, it'll just all be landfill items. So our campus is heavily into making sure that most of the products that we sell are either compostable or recyclable. And we just recently passed also a policy to eliminate single-use plastics. So this is one of the highlights, I think, as far as upstream. We want to make sure that materials that we sell are able to be put into our Big Bellies. So, okay, next slide. So last one, also just a little bit of bins and placement. This is just a quick example of a campus. I see this. I do travel quite a bit for conferences sometimes, and see bin placements and sets. This is just a good example of one. So when folks place their Big Bellies, sometimes they're like wondering, maybe we should keep our old ones there just in case. So really just deploying them, you want to just remove the old ones because it does confuse people. And then as we were mentioning is that the efficiency for workload, you're doubling your workload if you keep your old bins there. So, so obviously you want to also keep your bins consistent. The reason why this picture is kind of good to point out is also if you see the set on the bottom right, people tend to again, depending on who is running facilities or your change or recycling or waste reduction or sustainability, people tend to buy different types of bins and sets and they're not consistent, which again, I find for Big Belly, that is the best part for us is that the consistency in the look of the bins. So you're not seeing one set of recycling and compost and other things, and then a normal concrete trash bin that's still left in the same place. So again, I mentioned this because it really, it was also a pretty good amount of work for us. We weed out all the old bins and we still find them once in a while. They're hiding, but as I said, it took us some time to take out all the old bins that are on campus. But again, that is in your best interest to do that. Next slide. So also lastly, I just want to point out, it is an investment. These bins are something that you want to grow with. We certainly, as I said, through the different phases, have also, again, in connection with Big Belly, they've sat there and also helped us invest in this system moving forward. The things with campus standard is that we've made this our campus standard, but you don't want to have a campus standard where you're not changing. So your bins that are decided on 20 years ago may not work as well and don't establish themselves in the same 20 years that you set up as a standard. So one thing we did like about it is the amount of the flexibility. And as Big Belly was able to grow forward and move forward in the different years, they've come up with all different strategies, which has been helpful. And so we didn't have to change our standard, but just change the actual bins and as it grows. So I just listed a few of the investments that Big Belly has made, and we have also with Big Belly, from the foot pedals to the hopper sensors, the paneling I mentioned on the side. And then the last, so customization was great. We were able to customize our bins with Cal and Berkeley. And then the last one is we just were able to bring on what we call zero waste techs. So they were there to help us at least do some of the preventative maintenance and also do a few of the quick fixes for these Big Bellies, because they are high tech and we want to make sure that we keep them up so they're doing the right recording. So next slide. Okay, so this is, we're gonna real quick just briefly go back on why we do the smart waste benefits. Next slide. So I mentioned we have a zero waste goal by 2020, and this has allowed us to additionally add composting, but also the multi-streams. So again, by having these different bins, people get to make a choice of being able to either recycle or compost. So as your campus may only at this point either not have the Big Belly system or you have the landfill system, this opportunity gives you the ability to expand, to add another either recycling bin, bottles and cans bin, or compost bin. So it gives you that flexibility to be able to add additional systems versus getting stuck with just one and then having to do an inconsistent bin for another. Next, oh, I'm sorry, and the pest management I mentioned, that is one of the big supporters that we've had, and I'll mention that a little bit later. Next slide. So uniformity, again, I can't stress this enough. I've seen most places not be uniform in their look as far as bins on campus, just because of the different years that people have been there, different managers or administrators that have made different decisions. And this is one of the biggest things I think on campuses or even cities, municipalities, or any campus, that uniformity is really important, and it will increase your diversion rate, reduce your contamination, and really does, as Big Belly mentioned, is that beautifies the campus, and the consistency really looks good on your campus with having the Big Bellies. Next slide. The clear and consistent messaging, as mentioned, keep it simple and clean. The examples on the picture I showed real quick is the top right is one of the sets we have right outside our cafe. And compared to a few of the different ones that we see in the city, and also the other one is at a conference facility. So, the one at the bottom right is in our city, and if you don't have enough capacity, these restaurants or cafes tend to bring out their own bins. So really the Big Bellies with the compaction really does help. So the cafe we have on campus, with it, in fact, they wanted to have the Big Bellies so that they didn't have to add their own bins. So we worked with them to include the Big Belly set there. And then, as I mentioned, at the bottom left, you want really the consistency. On there, you see different stickers, different types of bins. You can tell they're not really invested in a compost system when you just bring out a cardboard box. You really do want to show folks that you're invested in all the streams in the same bin and the messaging. Next slide. So Pest, I did want to bring that out too. One of our biggest supporters on campus is our Integrated Waste Pest Management Department. The first thing we've noticed was the reduction of litter because of the pests who actually go into our old bins, bring all the materials out, and then we actually also have a pretty good sizable, again, I'm not calling them pests, but we do also have a sizable amount of folks who do dig out of our bins, and they leave litter. So the security and the compaction, and for us to be able to lock them and keep them tight, has really been a really bonus for us to be able to keep the area clean and reduce the amount of pests that we have on campus. Okay, next slide. Just quickly mentioning during the pandemic and COVID, we did find that these Big Bellies really did perform a lot for us. Even though we closed and shut down our campus due to COVID, our space is really also public and lots of different traffic. So, we never actually stopped servicing the bins, and in fact, it increased because all the community came to campus to use it. So we had a lot of non-campus waste, which is that we try to, when on campus, to sell recyclables and compostables. But now that non-campus folks are using the bins, we did see an increase in our waste stream. And then the no-touch foot pedals was a huge thing because then you didn't have to touch anything. And with COVID, everyone wanted to make sure that, this is great. Best thing since sliced bread to be able to not, use a bin that had to touch. But then also on the other side, we're mentioning as far as making sure that people are taking an action. So you're having to step on something and putting it into the bin versus just throwing it into a bin and not looking. Next slide. So here's just a few of the quotes that Big Belly and us really does, as mentioned, work as a team. This is the way that we have been able to, also with one of our partners, Waxy, we have really had to work with the team to move forward on this great product and for us to change how we see things on campus and make it more efficient, and also about the campus developing this great investment to move forward. Next slide. So the last I'll leave with you, I've been, again, back in my UC Davis days with Big Belly, even back then. And I used to say that, people always ask me, why do you start with these bins? And they're so much, much different from what we see typically, and they're high end. And so I used to always say, they're the Ferrari of bins. That's we want to invest in these, and bigger, the high performance. That's what you think about for Ferraris. They cost more, but they also perform well. But now with Tesla, I actually changed my mind a little bit. So I'm using them, and also with the solar now, with the sustainability. So instead of saying, they were the Ferrari of bins, now I also say that they're the Tesla of bins. And so then truly they lead in sustainability. I show this picture being that this is our platinum LEED building, also our true zero waste platinum certified building. And we do show our Big Bellies proudly in front of this leadership building on our campus as part of our strategy to get to the zero waste. So next slide. Okay, and that's my contact information. Thank you again for this opportunity, and I will turn it back to Jeff.
Thanks, Lynn. I appreciate it. You are certainly a leader in the zero waste industry. As you can see from Lynn's presentation, he's very passionate about recycling and zero waste and sustainability, and we're happy to be part of his mission in bringing that to UC Berkeley. So thank you very much for your time today. Billy, do you want to spend a little bit and do some polls quickly here to kind of see what's going on out there?
Certainly, we can do that if you bear with me for just a moment.
Great.
I'll select a poll and get these started.
Awesome. Liven up the folks here.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll. I'll share the results. This is our first question. And I will now go on to our second question. I'm going to close the poll and share the results. Okay, well, we have a lot of questions coming in, and the first one is for Jeff. How did you navigate campus architectural committees and standards? What was your experience with campus planning boards? I guess that question is for both Lynn and Mark as well.
Yeah, thanks, Billy. I definitely think that Lynn and Mark both have a lot to talk about. They've navigated that. Campuses are places that have a lot of, take a lot of care into the look and feel of the campus, and so they both have their stories of navigating that part of the world.
Guys, I'll take a shot at it first. We've had virtually no pushback from our architecture and planning group. They were really partnering with us in how to find a better way to keep trash and litter picked up. We brought them a solution. They have been a little more restrictive on me than they have been on Lynn about what I can do with the advertising panels on the side and what we do on the front. We've kept ours very plain. We have done this is actually in front of our stadium. That's typically how they look across campus. We have branded them with a facilities logo in some places, and there's a contact information on the side, but we've kept them very simple. That was their request, and so we've followed their rule, and there's really been very minimal pushback.
Hey, Lynn, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So our experience is that it definitely was a challenge. So that's why I mentioned we had to do it in several phases. It's a little easier for folks to take on when you just say, hey, you know what, can we just start a little bit and test it? I mean, even that was a little bit tough because we had back then an architect who just loved the different bins that they were created and wanted to have different bins all over campus. But that's kind of the difference in, I guess, operationally and sustainability a little bit, is that different bins drive confusion versus, one set that are customized. So like I said, we were able to convince them to just try a little bit. So the first phase was just 10 sets. And, I think as it grew and the more people saw them and more people liked them, that kind of overcame people's reservations originally, like making a change. I mean, any change that we see, people are always resistant to. So that helped us. It will take a little inch at a time. And then I do notice I've met with a few campuses that have the architect or even they have committees set up on architectural features. So again, you just have to take it slowly sometimes, but I think by the time we were able to show how much it beautified the campus, they were used to, the look. So that's been our experience.
Okay, thank you. This next question is both for Lynn and Mark. Again, how did the student body react to the new smart waste systems?
We actually utilized our sustainability group to go out and promote them in some different areas, to stand around them. They actually set up tables with information about what we were trying to do. I would tell you from that perspective, they've been very well received. We're even, I'd actually joked with the Big Belly folks when we were talking last week. I'm looking for a baby belly, because we're thinking about maybe taking some of this technology into buildings. It's been that impactful to us. So I think I would tell you, students they've been very well received.
Yeah, I think our students really love the system once we got it started. One being that the uniformity, so you walk up to the set, you don't have to be confused of what to put into it. So I think that really helped. Once we did the full campus expansion, we got really lots of positive press that the campus really did dedicate ourselves to our zero waste mission. And that was a big support for our sustainability efforts. I mean, wherever you walk, you are able to see that this is part of our investment. I was mentioning to Jeff earlier, the foot pedals, I think I got so many just reviews on the foot pedals. It's just crazy because our initial sets did not come with them. So we did make that investment as part of expanding and changing out just the doors and the foot pedals when we expanded to the next phase. And I got so many reviews like, oh my God, there's foot pedals. It became this big commotion, like everyone loved them so much. So I was to tell you, part of these, I think, upgrades does help us. The students just ranted and raved on how great they were.
Well, that's awesome. Excellent.
Okay. And the next question comes is, where did you find the funding for the Big Bellies on campus?
I personally carved it out of the facility side of the house and operating dollars. Having seen at Virginia Tech what the efficiencies were, I knew that I would very quickly gain it. So it was in Florida, I carved it out of operating dollars, and just with a reallocation internally to us, I didn't go anywhere. At Virginia Tech, it was a larger discussion, and actually we renegotiated a solid waste contract based on these versus what we had, and it helped us save enough money that we got it started. We got the program started.
Yeah, I have to say that question comes up a lot. Especially I see a lot of emails in the listservs of how do we fund these bins, or how do we get them institutionalized. I said, I've been in the facilities for a while, but I also started as a student, kind of like Jeff, I think, as a student working on campus. I mean, I was one of the first students picking up recycling paper, and it was a student-run effort. It was not part of facilities back in the days. But I've said, as the years progressed, as institutions and campuses and sustainability has moved forward, these investments, I think, are now added to as part of facilities. So they're not just like, oh, good to do student efforts. These are now institutional, part of the facilities environment. The first 10, as I mentioned, we did invest in those. I think Mark definitely added this to his point. It's part of our cost savings. I think you make it part of the financial benefits. And also we were able to, again, get a lot of the press as far as people liking them. So when a dean comes to you and says, I really like that set, it carries a lot of weight. So we had a engineering dean who said, you know what, I want 5 of these on my building locations because it cleaned up another part of our campus and it really helped, move this forward. So institutionalizing, I think, is the plus. I mentioned on the second phase rollout as part of capital projects. My recommendation is putting it into once you get to that tipping point, as soon as you create it as part of your campus standard, then each of your new buildings moving forward, it will be funded as part of that capital project. And that's really important because, again, I know a lot of times, I think Mark might join me in this, is that we always get value engineered out of projects when we get to that last point. So it's really working with capital projects on new buildings to make sure you start off on the right foot, because they do have funding for bins as part of their project. And we do fight for every dollar when these capital building projects start up to make sure that they furnish that as part of our campus standard. So again, between institutionalizing and facilities investment and also with capital projects, I think those are 2 really strategies to fund them on your campus.
It's no different than a light standard, a bench, or some other ornamental something that they're putting around the building. It's all part of the package, right? So you just have to continue to push that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, from APA to other organizations, the architects and engineers we work with, and this is just one of those things, this coming from the facility side, architects and engineers, when we talk with them, they hate trash bins. Like, they're ugly, we don't want them there. You look at all their great pictures, there's no one trash can like they ever put on their illustration drawings, but they're a fact of life. Like, if you don't have them, so as I said, we've been trying to promote, like, hey, these look great. They don't look like normal receptacles, and I think some folks tell me they look futuristic. So now they've actually are able to add some of these in sometimes when we talk about it. So it's been nice to be able to see that versus people old perception of just dirty trash cans, outside their buildings. I think this is the new perspective.
I will say, from our side of things, we, when we engage with a customer, we really do try and work with them on customizing a system. And some of those things are budgetary. So we try and work with our customers to solve their problems and make sure that the system works for them.
Okay. I have a very interesting question came up. How do the bins hold up under the heat of Texas or Florida or extreme weather conditions?
They don't hold up to snow plows very well. But actually at Virginia Tech, we had a couple that were wounded in action that were very quickly addressed. It was, these actually are interesting how they go together. They're removable panels, so it's not like a tulip can or some ornate iron can that you hit and bend up. You replace a component and you go on. We've had no problem with them in Florida. So in two very different climates, hasn't been an issue.
I can say I've spent the majority of my life trying to design these sort of bins, and it's certainly been a challenge. We have products in the Arctic Circle and in Texas and other places like that. And we spent a lot of time learning about those locations, testing for heat, for cold. As Mark said, we've done our best to try to make the products modular, so that in the event that something does happen, that it can be repaired, not have the whole thing replaced. So generally, our customers do find very positive experience with all that.
Yeah, I have to say at Berkeley, we've been really lucky because we have a very mild climate. We don't really get very hot or very cold, so we don't have to deal with snow or in 100-degree weather. So we have no issues as far as climate goes. I will say one of my colleagues so Big Belly is deployed on all the other University of California, most of University of California campuses. One of my colleagues at another campus did have a heat issue. And I'll have to say his experience with it was great because they knew that it came up as a problem. And as Jeff mentioned, their tech support team and also their team to be able to assist you, they were able to work out a solution. So as I said, it definitely is a work in progress. I mean, this is a high technology piece of equipment. This is not just your simple trash can that you're putting out there. So as I said, that's the part that we've really felt comfortable with, being able to have that technology and also the support system, just in case if something goes wrong.
Okay, well, thank you. Another interesting question that just came up is how heavy are the bags once the Big Belly is full? And, what is the weight of having to empty one of these?
We don't really struggle with it. We have had some conversation about this size potentially inside a building because there may be a different skill set of employee that's there, or our housekeeping team is a little bit older than our outside grounds guys, but we still talk in that 50-pound range, 50 to 75 pounds. It would really depend on where they are. If there's a lot of if it's at a dining hall and could potentially have a lot of food waste in it, it's a little heavier. But I've not the way this comes out of the and really, Jeff, you guys should have something on your site that shows how this empties. It's not as problematic as lifting up out of a can. It opens up and it's in front of you, not something you have to lift up over your head to get out. So we haven't had any pushback from our guys at all. As a matter of fact, they've been very comfortable with it.
Yeah, from Berkeley. Jeff, you want to go ahead? I'll cover after.
No, if you finished, I'll take next.
Okay. From the Berkeley experience, so we have made modifications on, because Jeff mentioned this, you're able to adjust as on your actual dashboard if things need to either be more frequent, depending on the locations. So, if it's outside a dining location, things get a little heavier, depending on versus another location, which we have like near a more rural, where it's just a walk path. So you're able to make those adjustments on your dashboard of when you frequently pick up or you don't. They are adjustable. So we get the input from our folks picking up and we can make that adjustment. The other one that we actually have tried, and we actually are going lighterless, as I was mentioning, we're doing our plastic elimination, single plastic elimination policy that we just passed on campus. So we're trying to get rid of plastic bag liners. So we've been pretty much on the outdoor bins, not lining them and trying that. The last one that we are working on, not fully completed yet, but we are looking at a mechanical system basically with Big Belly, and we have some vehicles that we're test piloting that are able to dump the bins mechanically without lifting. So that's another one of our, as I said, investments looking forward that looks pretty good for us to be able to without physically having to lift them at all.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we've had to address since the founding of the company. When you go from a non-compacting bin to a compacting bin, it does hold more waste, and that waste carries weight. So we've done a number of things, as Lynn was talking about, to give people flexibility to adjust. These bins are all smart and connected. So through the software dashboard that we showed some screenshots of, each one can be independently set for when it triggers that it's full. And so that, that can help. We've seen some customers in areas where they do have higher weight, higher density trash, maybe with more organics in there, setting that threshold lower so that they get triggered sooner and the bags weigh less. We also do have some differences in the ergonomics of a normal bin, as Mark was talking about, lifting it out. The bin as it comes out is at a lower lift height, so it does help someone who's lifting it. We also do have a bin that interfaces with lift trucks, as Lynn was talking about, and that's something I think will potentially be gaining in prominence here in the U.S. A lot of our international partners do use that as it's a pretty common lift, waste collection style in international markets.
Okay, well, thank you. I have a question directed at Lynn. I was wondering if you have to manage the compost stream differently. Do you see more contaminants within compost bins?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was going to mention in the last question too, is that the addition of compost, actually, if you think about it, didn't have compost, it would just be in your trash big belly. And that 3-bin system actually helps us decrease our workload, because now you've got 3 different bins to put into versus just 1 trash bin. So it did spread out our load a little bit. So it decreases the amount of workload. And the compost, as I mentioned, all our campus facilities, cafes, have switched over to sell mostly compostables. And then the signage on each of our bins are very clear that, hopefully we're actually starting to move towards the fiber, more paper-based. What you see typically, which was what I like about the compaction system, is that what we used to see people eat their lunch or get their to-go food, they're in their little paper bags, and it's like this little air pocket of their paper bag. And if you see a normal trash system, they just throw that out and it fills up in 3 seconds. Then with the compaction system is now all that material in the paper bag and their food waste is all in that bag. It goes into the compactor in our compost and it compacts down. So really it gets rid of all that air that you see typically out of a kind of a fast food grab and go situation. So we're still working on trying to eliminate a lot of our plastics. That's typical of the to-go, but all our like clamshells are fiber. We're working on trying to decrease any of our landfill items. And also add in reusables. So again, as we are able to phase out a lot of the plastics with reusables and everything else is compostable or a can of bottle, again, I'm hoping one of these days I convert actually that landfill into compost. So that's kind of where we're at.
I think one of the neat things we've seen with higher ed campuses in particular is more so than any of our other market segments, they have the control over both the inflow, all the inflow of materials as well. So through what they select in the food court areas and stuff like that, you have a lot more control over what the waste coming out of the student body ends up being. So some of the changes that Lynn's talking about with their initiative towards zero waste at UC Berkeley is about planning for that, so that the stuff that's being delivered from the cafeteria can go into the compost bin and lets the students do the right thing there. So I think that's one of the neat things, is really thinking about this holistically. Bigbelly is just part of the overall campus sustainability picture, and thinking about kind of what you're buying to give the students in particular food and whatnot in, then that directly determines what sort of waste comes out the other side.
And you mentioned earlier, I think the question was about the student support. That's really the customer demand. I mean, you start seeing a lot of the corporations now, especially with that straw campaign that we saw. Everyone's getting rid of the straws from Starbucks to everyone else and redesigning their product line. I've actually even seen Panda Express, at least in California, they're switching to a fiber-based clamshell as well instead of the styrofoam. So you're starting to see the corporate, even the fast food locations, and as you see that, this is perfect for linking into depositing, say if they're done with their food, they have the compostables, it's in their fiber clamshell, it goes right into the big belly and it compresses.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We are almost out of time. I think we have time for one quick question. Have either of you had any issues with accessibility or disability issues with the foot pedal or pull handles?
I've not had any pushback or discussion or anyone reach out with that concern.
We've actually had that, but that was a question that came up. That has come up with our ADA compliance. And again, Big Belly was there to support us with the information that's compliant. And then we are looking actively. I think, again, this is great for you, Jeff. I think it's every time we push the Big Belly team to come up with a new design for us. So maybe the next phase, we've asked maybe they could come up with a button that folks can either push, just like ADA, or you can push a button on the Big Belly system that would open up the hopper. Maybe that's the next stage of development. At this point, I think in checking with Big Belly, again, I'll turn it over to Jeff, but it is ADA compliant at this point.
Yeah, foot pedal has been a part of our product line for the last 5 years or so, and one of the reasons why we have kept the handle in place with the foot pedal is exactly for that reason, making sure that it does remain ADA compliant with the right reach height and ergonomics for someone to interact with it, even with with the disability. The handle, the curved design of the handle is specifically done that way so that someone can interact with it even without good dexterity of your fingers and hands. So we try to keep in mind that there's lots of people out in the world and with different capabilities, and make sure that they can all interact with our products.
Well, gentlemen, I would like to say thank you so much for taking the time today to be with us to do this great presentation. And to our attendees, thank you so much. So until next time, be safe, stay healthy, have a great week. Goodbye now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Billy.